Morning, everybody. Just Ehren right here, Canadian Looney. How you doing? Running a little bit behind schedule this morning, just by a couple of minutes. How's everybody today? Thank God it's Friday. Crazy times in Canada, crazy times with India, no doubt. How's everybody doing? We've got some interesting pieces to watch today. We've got a great committee that just wrapped up like 2 minutes ago. That's why I'm late. Anyhow, pretty excited to get into this. Let's get kicked off. Good to see everybody. Let's catch up here. Let's get going.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Oh, yeah.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Wiggle and squirm as you might, it is really hard to put lipstick on a pig.
When I'm Prime Minister, I will keep my promises.
WTF.
Here.
I know this place is where I am. No other place is better. No matter where I go, I am proud to be Canadian. I am, you know I am. The world that works out. Another time, right?
The one we call Canadian.
Gentlemen, beam me aboard.
All right, gang. So something that I've discovered recently is that I like watching the Indian news. Broadcast news from India is very interesting. Again, you can't really trust any media here in Canada. So, Ehren, why would you trust the Indian news? The reason that I trust the Indian news is because I do not trust Trudeau, and he's accusing them of foreign interference. Everything that this guy says is bullshit. We all know this, right? Like, up is down, black is white, like red is blue. He's a fake and a phony, a total liar. So if he says that we're getting misinformation or India's spreading misinformation to Canadians, I'm going to watch what the stations over there are broadcasting, because it probably is true stuff. Let's take a peek. We're going to watch one. I've got these two videos that we're going to play. They're pretty short. And then we're going to jump into the committee. Then I've got another piece that we will show. So let's get that going.
Say what you want about Justin Trudeau, but you cannot deny one thing. He believes in freedoms, like the freedom of expression or freedom of press, unless, of course, you're Indian press, in which case you're branded fake news. Let me show you a report by the Canadian government. It was published last month. It accuses Indian media of meddling in Canadian politics. Now, the data appears to be from last year, from 2023. That's after Trudeau accused India of killing Nijjar. It lists out a number of instances and quotes, all of them involving Indian media channels and commentators. And First Post has also been named in this report by the Canadian government. We've been accused of peddling fake narratives, of spreading disinformation about Canada. We'll get to the details in a bit. But first, listen to this part of the report. This is what it says. Some Indian outlets have more than 10 million YouTube subscribers. Canada's low subscriber numbers in comparison suggest a distinct advantage for Indian media. Is that a compliment or a complaint? Canada says Indian media outlets have more followers. As a result, we have an advantage. Well, congratulations, I guess. You have figured out maths and technology. But let's take a closer look at these so-called narratives. Apparently, Indian coverage portrayed Canadian diplomats in an unsavory light. Well, how unfortunate for them. God forbid someone threatens diplomats or shoots bullets at their posters or calls them terrorists. Does any of this sound familiar to you? This is exactly what happened to Indian diplomats in Canada. Trudeau did not seem to mind that, but he opposes unsavory depictions of his own diplomats. Let's move to complaint number 2. Indian media showed Nijjar as an unsavory individual. Well, first of all, someone get these guys a thesaurus. And secondly, unsavory is charitable. We have called him a terrorist and a separatist. So get your facts right. In fact, let me quote further from that report. These narratives seek to portray Nijjar as an individual who led a double life and discredit his role as a community leader in Surrey. A double life. Now, why would someone get that idea? Is it because Nijjar went to Canada on a fake passport? Or because his asylum bid was rejected? Or because Interpol issued a notice against him? Or because of the dozens of cases here in India against him? Maybe all of them. Which community leader has such a rap sheet? I'm hoping no one. Which brings us to the third complaint. Targeting of New Democrat leader JAGMEET Singh. Let me quote again. Many Indian media posts claim JAGMEET Singh is pro-Khalistani and is culpable of terrorism himself. These narratives present Singh as the reason for Prime Minister Trudeau's ruination. Again, just to be clear, we are not claiming JAGMEET Singh is a Khalistani. He is a Khalistani. I know Trudeau doesn't trust Indian media, so here's a Canadian report from 2018. It says JAGMEET Singh attended Khalistani rallies where violence against India was celebrated. That same year, he gave an interview. JAGMEET Singh was asked whether he supported Khalistan referendums. Listen to his answer.
As a leader of a federal party in Canada, it's not up to me, nor should I provide any input on whether people advocate for it or not. That is a decision by the people who are impacted.
Canada does not recognize these votes, nor does the government of India, but JAGMEET Singh refuses to take that position. He says it's not up to him. In another interview, he was asked about the Kanishk bombing of 1985, specifically about the mastermind, Talvinder Singh Parmar, but JAGMEET Singh refused to condemn him. He did make a U-turn many years later, but it tells you what he stood for. And now to the fourth complaint. Indian media says Trudeau invented this incident to score political points, basically vote bank politics. Fine, you don't listen to us. Listen to a former advisor of Justin Trudeau.
By taking goodwill measures, it would have at least been possible to keep talking and find workable policy solutions. The only problem was, Mr. Trudeau did not want to lose the Sikh vote to JAGMEET Singh, so he dug in our heels.
This was published in the Globe and Mail last we checked. It's a Canadian newspaper. Are they also spreading fake narratives? If so, why aren't they on this list? The fact is, Justin Trudeau is shooting the messenger. Maybe some random influencers are pushing fake narratives, but the overwhelming perception is not wrong. Trudeau and his government allowed Khalistani radicals to flourish, and Hardeep Singh Nijjar was one of them. You can name-call the Indian media all you want to, but it does not change the facts. Also, just some advice for your staff. Maybe stop counting our views and subscribers on YouTube. Instead, try finding that promised evidence. That is, of course, if it even exists.
First Post decodes the U.S. election. Explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes. and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained, every Monday and Thursday only on First Post.
Sorry there, gang, to drop in an Indian news commercial there as well, but we've got this committee video to watch that happened this morning. It's a little slow to get going, but we've got good guys and bad guys again. Iker Khalid's involved in this one, so we've got Melissa Lantzman. Who else was in there? Saw Tim Uppel, saw Rachel Dancho. Who else did we see in there? MP Holland. Jos Raj was in there, and he's always fun to watch. But and they're talking about the Indian foreign interference, or India's foreign interference, pardon me. And yeah, this is a really interesting committee video, so we'll get that going.
Welcome to meeting number 124 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format. I would like to remind participants of the following points. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. All comments should be addressed through the chair. Members, please raise your hand if you wish to speak, whether participating in person or via Zoom. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can. And we have been having some sound issues, so if there are any, if they persist and they haven't been resolved, please be circumspect in bringing them to our attention. So pursuant to Standing Order 106 sub 4, the committee commences consideration of the request to undertake a study of recent events surrounding the expulsion of diplomats from the Government of India and the situation of foreign interference in Canada. I will pass the floor to Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning to committee members. I just first of all want to start off by thanking everyone who joined with me in signing the 106-4 letter. As you can imagine, it's pretty rare that we get unanimous support for an emergency meeting, but I think the revelations from the RCMP that were delivered to the Canadian public on Thanksgiving Monday were nothing short of explosive, and I think they demand this committee's attention. I will be moving a motion, Mr. Chair, and I know that the clerk has both French and English copies available, hard copy and digital, for members who are participating in person and online. But before I move the motion, I think it's important just to add a little bit of brief context, because of course this is not the first time that we have been witness to serious allegations involving the Government of India and its agents in Canada. In fact, it was more than a year ago in September of 2023 that the Prime Minister stood in the House of Commons and leveled these accusations against the Government of India, accusing it and its agents of nefarious criminal activity, of election interference, a whole host of things. And needless to say, for the Prime Minister to rise in the House of Commons and make such a statement, that did make headlines around the world. Since then, of course, we've had the Hogue Commission release an interim report that was in May of 2023. And if you read that report, you can see that there are broad mentions of India's interference in Canada throughout that report. And then, of course, in June of 2024, the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians released its special report on election interference, which again mentioned the activities of the Government of India throughout it. So that brings us, Mr. Chair, to October 14th, 2024, this past Monday. And for the RCMP, indeed for any police force that is conducting an active investigation, to come out with such explosive revelations, I think underscores just how serious this is. And I think the RCMP made a point that they were doing this because some individuals in Canada had their lives directly in danger, and the threat had reached such a level that they felt compelled to ignore the traditional way of going through the judicial process and make these accusations public, so that particularly members of the South Asian community whose lives might be in danger could be forewarned, and so that we could be remaining extra vigilant. So I also think, Mr. Chair, that the House of Commons and the Senate came together quite quickly in June of this year to pass Bill C-70, which of course contained important legislative measures to deal with foreign interference. So I think with all of these events coming together and culminating in what we saw on Monday, I think it is quite appropriate for this committee to be seized with the matter. And with that in mind, I would like to move the following motion. That pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study concerning the electoral interference and violent criminal activities carried out by agents of the Government of India, as identified by the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians report and the RCMP's report from October 14th, 2024, and the subsequent expulsion of 6 diplomats from the Government of India. As a part of this study, the committee hold no less than 6 meetings, ensuring an equal distribution of time for witnesses, and invite the following ministers, senior officials, and expert witnesses from impacted communities and academia to provide briefings. 1. Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Melanie Joly. 2. The Minister of Public Safety, the Honorable Dominic LeBlanc. 3. The RCMP Commissioner, Mike Duhem. 4. National Security and Intelligence Advisor, Nathalie Drouin. 5. Experts from Canada's South Asian community. 6. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown and any former leadership candidates of the 2022 Conservative Party leadership race. And 7. National security subject matter experts. With that, Mr. Chair, the motion is so moved. I hope copies have been distributed to members, and I will give my time back to the chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. We'll start the debate now. I see that Ms. May has her hand up. I'm sorry?
Mr. Chair, I may need unanimous consent to be allowed to speak, but I have had a top secret security briefing from Nathalie Drouin and from the new head of CSIS, Daniel Rogers, and I'd appreciate an opportunity to support the study and also to suggest a reason that beyond the one that Alistair just mentioned for why it was that the RCMP had to go forward and make this information public, because there's a larger context that has to do with having to disclose in the criminal activities that criminal charges that have already been brought.
Hold up for just a minute, please. How does she need?
This one's a little slow to get started. It really does get fired up though, because like as you can see, you've got Rachel Dancho, firecracker. We've got MP Holland, who's one of the sharpest.
I understand that as a member of the House of Commons, you can participate. You do not require unanimous consent, and so I'll let you carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add some more context. I know I'm not a member of the committee, but as a leader of the Green Party, I have top secret security clearance, and as a leader of a party, all party leaders in the opposition have received briefings from Nathalie Drouin, the National Security and Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister, and I also on that call was with the newly appointed head of CSIS, Daniel Rogers. The context in which they had to go forward was that they were aware that the RCMP was aware that the criminal investigations that are ongoing required that the defense counsel for people engaged in the criminal prosecutions for the murder of course, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, that much of this was going to have to be disclosed in court. And they were also aware that 6 diplomats and their proxies were involved in an active continuing ring that represented a threat to Canadians. So I'm not taking anything away from what my colleague, Mr. McGregor, has said, just to say that that's an additional reason for the urgency that led the RCMP to take this additional information, which is absolutely chilling, to make it public. That was another part of that context. So I'd like to participate in the hearings going forward. I promise not to take much of the committee's time. I just appreciate the opportunity to say that where we have had briefings, and some of us have more information than others, I think all Canadians should have the same kind of briefing that I received, just with the care that's taken to say this part here has to stay behind an absolutely secure wall for national security reasons. The rest can be shared with Canadians so they understand why there is the need for the sharing publicly of this information. Completely agree the focus on people who are most at risk, because there's an active effort by a criminal network with a coordination out of India to actually collect information on Canadians, things like when people are walking their dog and what normal pattern of life, what route they take. This couldn't be more significant and urgent that it be disrupted, and that Canadians be reassured that the RCMP and CSIS and our intelligence apparatus are coordinating their work to protect Canadians' lives. I'll stop there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. May. We go now to Ms. Dancho, followed by Madame Michaud, followed by Mr. Halen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As has been past practice, when a motion is not provided to members to review in advance, you have provided a 5-minute recess to review. So I'd ask for that 5-minute recess to review the motion, please.
That sounds reasonable. We will suspend for 5 minutes.
All right, guys, they're going to suspend for 5 minutes. I'll get us to where's it? They say 5 minutes, but it's we won't be waiting here 5 minutes. We're jumping ahead or skipping the break, obviously. Here we go. This interface is so clunky. God damn.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And
here we go. We're back.
Certainly, the allegations of the RCMP are extremely concerning and must be taken very seriously by all parliamentarians, and certainly by this committee. And the allegations of what India has done on Canadian soil represent an outrageous assault on Canada's sovereignty and are completely unacceptable. Foreign interference from any country, as we know, including from India, must be put to a stop. The first job of the Prime Minister and Canadians and the Canadian government is to keep citizens safe from foreign threats. That is the first job of the Prime Minister and the Canadian government. And the first job of the official opposition, of course, is to hold the government accountable for their ability or lack thereof to prevent foreign interference and to keep Canadians and people in Canada safe from foreign threats. And we certainly expect the full criminal prosecution of anyone who has threatened, murdered, or otherwise harmed Canadian citizens or people on Canadian soil. And the Public Safety and National Security Committee, as we know, has the responsibility to look promptly into this matter in a professional manner and thoroughly on behalf of Canadians and all those who have suffered in Canada as a result of the federal government failing to prevent foreign interference over these last number of years. So, Mr. Chair, I just did want to mention that the Conservatives on this committee and the official opposition at large certainly take this matter very seriously and are deeply concerned that the situation under the Liberal Prime Minister continues to worsen for Canadians. It is shocking to learn that there are, as per the RCMP, 13 individuals who are facing an imminent threat, as bad as murder potentially, from a foreign government, notably from India. So we are very seized with this issue as Conservatives, and certainly on this committee we are, of course, reviewing the motion put forward by Mr. McGregor. We thank him for bringing forward his 1064 letter, and of course we're keen to sign it so that this committee can look into this matter very thoroughly. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to include my thoughts on this, and I believe my colleagues would like to as well.
Thank you. We go now to Mr. Upal, followed by Mr. Halen, followed by Ms. Lantzman. I'm sorry, I apologize. Next is Madame Michaud. Allez-y, s'il vous plaît. Désolé.
Pas de problème. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais remercier.
Sorry, guys, to interrupt. We'll get right back to that. Smash the like. Consider subscribing. Consider joining up. We're just starting here. We're going to get better, have a lot more content for the members. Anyways, smash the like, that would be appreciated.
Monsieur McGregor d'avoir proposé cette réunion d'urgence. Le Bloc québécois n'a pas hésité à la signer parce que c'est un enjeu.
This is an extremely concerning issue, and I had a concern initially whether we would be asking the RCMP to come to committee to learn more about, because they already revealed a lot, well, because there's an investigation underway. But when I look at the witness list, I find this very reasonable, and I think we're learning more with various witnesses that could come. So I agree with this motion. I just have a question in terms of the translation. It's not very good with respect to witness number 6. In English, they talk about former leadership candidates, and in French, they say all former candidates. So we need to perhaps clarify this with Mr. McGregor. Do we want to have just any candidate from the Conservative leadership race from 2022, or all of them? So that's something that needs to be clarified, but the Bloc is in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Madame Michaud, if perhaps you could make that as an amendment, offer that as an amendment, to ensure that the...
C'est peut-être plus une clarification.
Perhaps it's a clarification, because right now both versions don't say the same thing. So I just would like to know if Mr. McGregor would like to have all former leadership candidates appear, or just any. So I won't move an amendment because I'm not sure which is the proper version. Probably the English one. I'm assuming he means any.
I'll ask Mr. McGregor to clarify. If you'd like to jump in quickly.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the word is any. That's how I intended it in the English version, and I'm sorry if it didn't come out clearly in French.
I guess we'll take that as a friendly amendment for the French version as well, to incorporate that as any. C'est bon, Madame Michaud?
All right, Madame Michaud, that's okay? Yes? Okay.
We'll go now to Mr. Upal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, we are dealing with a very serious issue after hearing from the RCMP of the allegations that they have made against Indians, agents of the Indian government. We heard accusations of murder on Canadian soil, extortion, use of organized crime, intimidation, and coercion. This is a matter of our protecting our sovereignty, protecting our democracy. And it's important for us as a committee and to be able to get answers for Canadians. It is important that any government's first duty is to protect the safety of Canadians and, of course, to take steps to stop foreign interference here in Canada. And we want to ensure that this government take national security seriously. The Prime Minister at the Hague Report himself admitted that that for a number of years that Indian government has been committing foreign interference here in Canada, and yet this has continued. This has gone on. We have seen in the U.S. Where the Americans have been able to stop incidents of murder and assassination in the U.S., but unfortunately that has not happened in Canada. Arrests have been made earlier in the U.S. That has not happened in Canada. And I think it's important that we as a committee look into the reasons for this, and so we can look at what are the gaps between to best protect Canadians, to protect our democracy, to protect our sovereignty, and to ensure that Canadians are kept safe. Thank you.
Thank you. We go now to Mr. Hallen.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak on this. I think that Monday's revelations by the these very, very serious revelations by the RCMP on Monday came as might be a shock to many, but I will say to many in the Sikh community, this is something definitely about foreign interference. The Sikh community knows well and has been talking about for more than 40 years in in Canada. We're at a very critical point now in the history for this very, very important issue on foreign interference that's being committed. The RCMP, the allegations that they made, those serious ones, I'd just like to read into the record. The RCMP, and this is from their presser, the RCMP has obtained evidence that demonstrates 4 very serious issues. The first one, violent extremists impacting both countries, India and Canada. The second one, links tying agents of the government of India to homicides and violent acts. The third, the use of organized crime to create perception of unsafe environment targeting the South Asian community in Canada. And the fourth, interference in democratic processes. Investigations have revealed that Indian diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leveraged their official positions to engage in clandestine activities. So by far not the lightest of allegations that have been made by the RCMP on foreign interference happening in Canada. Canadians should feel safe in Canada. Canadians should be safe from extortions. Canadians should be safe from murder. They should be safe, and their families should be safe. We should be living in safe communities from threats of violence, not just by anyone living here, but also from any foreign governments. After 9 years, that's not how Canadians feel. We saw last year a Canadian was killed on Canadian soil, allegedly by a foreign government. In name India is what the RCMP has alleged, or there's allegations towards it. So it's a very difficult time in Canada right now after 9 years of this Prime Minister. And I think that's why it's very important that we not only study this, but real action needs to be taken now for the safety of Canadians. It's been far too long. And as I said before, for the Sikh community, this is something they've been advocating for more than 40 years. And this is the allegations that were made by the RCMP on Monday were more of a vindication of what the advocacy has been going on for the last 40 years. A criminal is a criminal, and a Canadian is a Canadian. We should not look at any type of religion. This has nothing to do with religion or anything like that. This is simply about foreign interference happening and Canadians feeling unsafe in Canada. And that is a very, very serious thing that we need to address here. And I'm very, very happy my Conservative colleagues and I, we all want answers on behalf of Canadians. And so, as our leader has said, any foreign interference from any country, including India, is unacceptable and must be stopped. And that's why we're here today. And given that we know all this information, given the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar from last year, I do also want to point out the fact that in the U.S., they went from allegations to arrests in 1 week, whereas under this Prime Minister, there was allegations and absolutely nothing happened after that. It kept the communities at large feeling very unsafe that these allegations were taking place and that this could happen to anybody. And no arrests were made immediately, just allegations were made. So that is another thing that I hope we can cover in this study. And given all of that, Mr. Chair, I'd also like to just add a few people onto the list, if my colleagues would agree to that. So I would like to amend some of the witnesses that we want here. The first is the Director of CSIS, Daniel Rogers. The second, the Deputy Minister of Public Safety of Canada, Sean Tupper. And the third, Deputy Minister of Global Affairs Canada. I think just to add those three would give us a better, it would give us a wider range to be able to study this. So that's if you want to call it a friendly amendment, that's what we're proposing. Thank you.
I'll take that as a simple amendment. So the discussion now is on the amendment. We have, the Director of CSIS, the Deputy, could you say those again?
The first is the Director of CSIS.
Yes.
Daniel Rogers. The second, Deputy Minister of Public Safety Canada, Sean Tupper. The third is the Deputy Minister of Global Affairs Canada.
Okay. Is there any discussion on adding those witnesses to the list? We'll go for a vote on that in that case.
I'm sorry, Chair. I think I have my hand raised.
I'm sorry. I missed who spoke there.
This is.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm virtual.
Oh, let me guess. She's really going to appreciate something, but she doesn't understand some other thing. This stupid woman. I'll give her credit for that. She maybe is a human.
Thank you very much for that. And I understand and appreciate the witnesses that are being added here. The CSIS director, the deputy minister for public safety, and the deputy minister for global affairs. I'm just wondering, given how the scope of this motion is being outlined, why do we need to add these witnesses to this list? And I'm hoping that the member who's moving this motion can help us clarify what exactly he is seeking to extract from these.
He's trying to find out what you guys are covering up. It's so obvious. Like, do they think that Canadians are stupid? Because we're not. She's stupid. Like, spoiled little brat. Snotty, arrogant.
Witnesses on his amendment.
I should just clarify that apparently we don't have a director of CSIS at the moment. We have an interim director, Vanessa Lloyd. So we'll consider that modification to be made. Okay. I'm sorry, who's next? Clarification by Mr. Hallen.
As clarification. Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I think it's very self-evident the people that we're putting forward would more than likely have a direct impact, or they had a direct link to anything that was happening at that time. And if we want to really study this issue of foreign interference, I think it's important to hear their voices in this debate as well. So, and they do have the expertise, as we know, to answer some of these questions, because they are in direct link with information that could be helpful in this. So I will be, and I'll just I'll end it off there.
So if I can just take the floor back there for a second, Mr. Chair. 100%. I think as much information as we can get from as many people as we can get, I think is a really good thing. So I have no problems with these names being added.
Next on my list is Ms. Landsman. I'm wondering if you want to speak after we vote on this amendment. Okay. All right. So is there any further discussion on these proposed amendments on this approach? Okay. All in favor of the as amended? That's all opposed? Carried. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we go back to the motion as amended, and it is to Ms. Landsman, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for bringing. I'm getting an echo. Thanks for bringing this forward to the committee. As my colleagues have already said, that the news and the allegations, certainly from the RCMP, are concerning, and I think that this committee is the right place to be seized with that. And furthermore, that any interference from any country, including India, is entirely unacceptable, and it should be stopped. And it is the government's first job to keep Canadian citizens safe from all of these foreign threats and the foreign interference that we know has been happening in the country for some time. For 9 years, the Liberal government has failed to keep Canadians safe, has failed to keep take national security seriously and foreign interference seriously. And it's become a playground. Canada has become a playground for these activities. We heard that over and over again. We hear it over and over again from experts. And I suspect that the witnesses at this committee would not try to hide that. Canadians need to know what, when, why, and it took so long for the government to act. And this is just another example of the Prime Minister's failure on foreign interference. We heard the Prime Minister at the Commission admit that our intelligence agencies have been gathering this information for years, indicating that India had been committing foreign interference on Canadian soil, and it's very clear that the Prime Minister had done nothing about it. Even when provided the opportunity to do something about it and protect Canadians against extortion, against the violent actions that the RCMP has brought to light about Indian officials engaging in, they voted against that in the House of Commons. Bill C 381 brought forward by my colleague, the Protection Against Extortion Act. At every single juncture, the Prime Minister has not acted on the information that he has. And I think that this committee and those watching this committee should know that. His government stalled for years on the creation of a foreign influence registry, and it was only ever introduced as a result of conservative pressure. So for those watching this at home, I hope that this committee reveals the inaction of the Prime Minister over the course of years of knowing information, and his inaction on his continued inaction that we heard from just this week on letting Canada become a playground for foreign interference, and that's on him. So I hope that this committee gets to the bottom of all of this. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Ms. Lansman. Okay. So I am advised that Daniel Rogers is in fact the new director of CSIS, appointed 3 days ago, but he will start, he commences on October 28th. So we will make those appropriate adjustments. Yeah, whatever. I'm also going to, before we go to our next speaker, who is Mr. Gahir, I want to ask Mr. McGregor to clarify something in the motion. The clerk has pointed out that in the English part of the motion it says, the committee hold no less than 6 meetings ensuring an equal distribution of time. So we're kind of unsure what an equal distribution of time for witnesses means. Maybe you could clarify that for us, Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it was just trying to ensure that, you know, I mean, we've gotten, the wording of the motion says no less than 6 meetings, so I think it's quite open. I think I was just trying to find a space where, you know, the parties' witness lists we're all treated in an equal manner, but if people have an issue with that or want further clarification, I don't want to interrupt the proceedings, because I think from what I've heard so far, there seems to be broad agreement with the overall direction that this motion's taking. So if people want to clarify that or suggest a friendly amendment, I'm open to that, but I don't want to in any way hold it up for other committee members.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. So the clerk just kind of wanted to know if it's like going to be 1 hour per. Anyway, I'm proposing that we let our esteemed clerk to sort this out as best he can. I think he will give us a fair. Ms. Dancho on that point.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair. With us adding the amendment of the additional deputy ministers, we certainly like them to appear separately. Of course, they're welcome to come with their ministers as they normally do, but we would like them to appear separately on their own for questions, not at the same time, so we can ensure we're getting the full breadth of the committee potential to question those deputy ministers on their knowledge and expertise. So they should be appearing separately on their own for at least 1 hour each, but notably 2 hours probably, I think, has been standard in the past, but I leave it to you.
So I will rely on our esteemed clerk to execute this in good faith, and he will do his best, as he always does. And we'll continue now with Mr. Gahir. Mr. Gahir, go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I can hear an echo. Testing? Okay, we're good. Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank my NDP colleague for obviously bringing this motion forward. It's of great concern to our party, to this committee, and to me personally, being a practicing Sikh. Canadians were rightfully shocked last year when the Prime Minister stood up in the House of Commons and declared on the House floor on the record that there was credible evidence to show that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Since then, we've learned a lot. In February of 2024, the RCMP created a multidisciplinary team to investigate and coordinate the efforts to combat further threats that existed, because we know that members of the South Asian community, members of the Sikh community, are being targeted with credible and imminent threats to their life. And that brings us to the events of a couple of days ago, where the RCMP made statements alleging the involvement of agents of the government of India in serious criminal activity in Canada, including homicides, extortions, and interference in our democratic processes. Now, I want to highlight how unprecedented this is, that this is an extraordinary situation. The RCMP normally does not comment on to protect Canadians from political interference. It's obviously going to be the RCMP that's going to...
Mr. Gahir, you cut out there for a minute. You cut out just after you said the RCMP does not comment, and then there was a gap. So,
okay, I will continue. So obviously, this is an unprecedented situation where the RCMP is commenting on an ongoing investigation, which they normally do not. And this is because of the threat that's posed to Canadians. We've seen that the government of India has refused to cooperate with Canadian law enforcement agencies, despite having been presented with that evidence of the involvement of their agents in serious criminal activity in Canada. There's organized crime being used to engage in intimidation, in threats, and violence, interference, targeting members of the Sikh community and the South Asian community within Canada. We support this motion. The only amendment that I would like to introduce will be along the lines of misinformation and disinformation, given right after the RCMP made their statement and the Prime Minister, the Minister of Public Safety, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs came out to make their statements. We saw this very coordinated effort through Indian media channels and by the government of India, frankly, to engage in disinformation campaign. This followed the announcement that 6 Indian diplomats and consular...
Do you understand now why I showed that video at the very beginning? Because they're trashing Indian news from India, and it sort of agrees with my line of thinking. Like, maybe they're fooling me, but I know that Trudeau's not fooling me. He's lying to me. And now he's got pawns like this Gahir talking shit.
Officials would be expelled from Canada to ensure that Canadians and diaspora communities are protected from the acts of political interference, violence, or intimidation on Canadian soil. What we've seen as a response from the Indian government is an attitude of deflection and denial, and just outright lying about the situation and what's happened. So I would amend it to include another bullet point in that list of the motion, something along the lines of witnesses to testify on the impact of the disinformation campaign. And I can leave it to Mr. McGregor maybe to propose that language, or to the clerk.
Okay, so your amendment,
your
amendment, I understand, is to add to that list of bullet points a category of witnesses, which is, I'm sorry, say that again.
Witnesses to testify on the impact of the disinformation campaign by India.
As a category under point 7, maybe point 8, witnesses to testify as to the to misinformation campaigns. Is that correct?
So it's disinformation. There's a difference there. Disinformation is when it's actually by design.
Not misinformation. Okay. All right, we have an amendment on the floor. So the motion, as previously amended, is now being proposed to be further amended. Is there any discussion on that amendment? Ms. Stancho, on a question on that?
Yes, thank you. Can you just, I wasn't quite clear where in the motion, just so I can understand where it's being emphasized, but I don't see any
End
issue
of the
with
list
this.
here.
Okay, because I just felt when he was talking about it that he was almost putting it into the bulk of the explainer at the beginning, but...
So the list is a bunch of categories.
I see.
And he just wants to add a point 8.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any further discussion on Mr. Gahir's amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Gahir. So does that wrap up your question, Mr. Gahir, or did you have more?
No, just wanted to amend the motion, and I thank my NDP colleagues for bringing this motion forward.
Thank you. We go now to Mr. Lloyd, I believe.
I cede my time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more questions or discussion on this on the amendment? Sorry, on the motion as amended? Seeing none, I call a vote on this. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much. Motion is carried, and that wraps up our business. Thank you very much, Olive, and we are adjourned.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I had my hands up.
Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you.
They're not adjourning.
Just related
There
to
might
the
be a
same
delay,
subject matter that we
they'll
have
be back.
before us, I also want to just put one more motion on the record for colleagues to consider. It is related to the subject matter at hand. The clerk has digital and paper copies. So I'll read it out as follows. That given the RCMP report on violent criminal activities linked to agents of the Government of India from October 14th, 2024, the Hague Commission's identification of foreign interference activities by Russia, Pakistan, China, and Iran, and the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians' special report on foreign interference in Canada's democratic processes and institutions, the Chair reports to the House that the committee calls for all federal party leaders to apply for the appropriate security clearance level in the next 30 days in order to review classified information and take necessary actions to protect Canadians. Mr. Chair, I think it's important that we move this motion because all federal party leaders have now received security clearance to review unredacted briefings on this very serious matter, except for one. And I think it's high time that, given the revelations that we heard on Monday, that we present a united front. And I think it's incredibly important for this committee to report back to the House that we recommend this course of action. And I will leave it there, Mr. Chair. I think the motion is self-explanatory. Thank you.
This does relate to the matter at hand, I think, very directly, so I will consider it in order. And I see Mr. Lloyd wishes to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's our very strong contention as Conservatives that any member of Parliament, any member of our political parties that are colluding with foreign powers to advance the interests of a foreign nation's agenda in our country need to be named so that Canadians can know and be fully transparent and clear the good name of the Parliament of Canada, which has been sullied these past many months by innuendo and allegations that have been made without full evidence that we haven't seen. And it's the contention of the Conservative Party of Canada that we need to release all those names so that we can take appropriate action and move on. We strongly believe that that a motion like this, which attempts to force the hand of all federal leaders on the security clearance front, is an attempt to muzzle the leader of the opposition from speaking out on the very important issue of foreign interference. We have to remember, myself, I was raising the issue of foreign interference at this committee years ago, and we were assured repeatedly by ministers of this government that foreign interference was not taking place in Canada's election. We were being reassured that foreign interference was not serious in Canada. This was just 2 years ago. And due to leaks from CSIS and our security agencies, and we have now come to learn that that was not the case, that there has been widespread allegations of foreign interference. And sadly today, with the recent RCMP announcement on Monday, it's escalated to the lives of Canadians being threatened allegedly by a foreign government. And how has this been allowed to happen after 9 years? Like, I remember back in 2015 working in the previous government that this would have been unheard of, that foreign governments were threatening the lives of Canadian citizens. And yet after 9 years under this Liberal government, due to their complete lack of action and complete lack of proactive activity to protect Canada, that that this has just been allowed to proliferate in this country. And it's not just allegations against India. There's a number of countries that see Canada as a completely soft target for foreign interference. And it's leadership. It's lack of leadership in Canada under this Liberal government, under this Liberal Prime Minister, who has now decided to try to weaponize the issue of foreign interference for his own political ends, to distract from the very real problems that his leadership is facing even within his own party, to try to weaponize the issue of national security for his own partisan ends. It's frankly, it's disgusting. I find it disgusting what this Prime Minister has done. And so I'll be moving forward with an amendment to this motion that we release the names of all members of Parliament, all parliamentarians who are alleged to have interfered with, who have colluded, knowingly colluded with foreign powers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. So we have an amendment on the floor, and the discussion is on the amendment. We have Mr. Halen up next. Did you wish to speak on the amendment?
It's an amendment. He moved an amendment. So do we
I know.
get a new
I just
list?
said so.
It's a new list, is it not? Speaking list? We don't need to speak on it.
I'm asking if you want to speak to this amendment.
I'll speak to the amendment. Well, we want to go to a vote.
So there is a list of on the main motion as
Yeah, I'll wait
once
for
it's
that.
done.
I'll wait for that.
And so I'll open it up. Any questions? Any speaking? Any debate on the amendment of Mr. Lloyd? And we see Ms. Dancho. I see Ms. May. She's had her hand up for a while. We'll start with Ms. May. Dancho. And Ms. Khalid.
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to this. I feel duty bound as someone who is has top secret security clearance and is perhaps more aware of the legislative framework around the security of information, that I feel duty bound to speak to say that this motion would be very inappropriate and in fact would be calling on people who have access to top secret security information to break the law. And I know that can't be Mr. Lloyd's intention, but the Security of Information Act, which used to be called the Official Secrets Act, requires that information that is collected and is in a top secret security designation not be made public. There are many reasons for this, including that we could be risking the lives of intelligence assets of the Government of Canada, people, real live human beings, unknown to us around the world who help Canadian security agencies and RCMP collect information. Even the publication of the numbers of people involved can, to another hostile foreign power, they can work by inference backwards and figure out, well, if Canadians know about that, they can only have gotten it from this source. And then that source could have their life in danger. So it's very important that I agree with the intention of Mr. McGregor's motion. It's very important. And I really do urge Mr. Poilievre, as a friend and a colleague, to ask for his top secret security clearance to clear the air. It must be done. But that is another matter altogether from saying the names should be made public. To do that is to urge colleagues to break the law, but perhaps even worse than breaking the law, to place Canadian intelligence assets at risk. And I think the motion might come back to committee with the amendment. The amendment might come back to committee after the committee and all members have had briefings on this point, not from me, but from our intelligence apparatus, from the people at CSIS, the people who handle security within the Privy Council office, the RCMP, and so on, so that everybody around this committee table is fully informed that releasing the names is a non-starter, is a threat to Canadian security, and can actually jeopardize lives. Thank you.
Okay, we go now to Ms. Dancho.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's interesting, Ms. May's stories from her perspective when she's read the unredacted and report to now seems to have changed quite a bit in tone and scope. So I just find that interesting that her perspective has changed just so recent. So anyway, I would say, though, this this amendment to ensure that the names are released would be in line with a number of what our allies do. For example, the United Kingdom rightfully names and shames any members of parliament who are acting in a treasonous manner or who are colluding with foreign countries to undermine the United Kingdom's national interest. And I do believe that Canada should be doing the same, and I agree with my colleague Dane Lloyd that otherwise, the Prime Minister seems to just be weaponizing this so-called secret information that he continues to talk about without actually saying the names to his own advantage. And I certainly would agree with the former NDP leader who, notably won many more seats than the current leader of the NDP, and has said again just recently, I agree completely with Mr. Poilievre's decision not to take the bait. That is, he's referring to Mr. Trudeau's allegation, or Mr. Trudeau's claims. He said Trudeau has been trying for a year and a half to restrain what Pierre Poilievre can do by trying to say, come on, get this private briefing, and oh, by the way, then you'll be held to an official secret and you won't be able to talk about this anymore. So it seems notable and frankly formidable NDP former leaders would agree with Pierre Poilievre, our leader of the Conservative Party, that any effort to do this is really an effort to put him under some sort of gag order so he can't really do his duty to hold the Prime Minister accountable for matters of foreign interference. So it's interesting to see now under Mr. Singh that Mr. Singh is working hand in hand with Mr. Trudeau yet again to try to gag order Pierre Poilievre from being able to speak about this issue. So it's interesting that Mr. Singh recently made a big show of ripping up some so-called, it was really an informal coalition with the Liberal government, but it would appear now they're really helping Mr. Trudeau to carry water on the really shameless partisan politics he's playing in the foreign interference inquiry, which until this point has been quite a serious and respectable and professional undertaking until the Prime Minister decided to make some sort of ruthless and shameless political show and a circus out of the whole affair. And I think what's really important for this committee to remember, and certainly Canadians will, that the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, had to be dragged kicking and screaming into this foreign interference inquiry. You'll remember, Mr. Chair, that he had first denied there was any election interference from China, for example, denied anything was going on with the member of Don Valley North in that nomination. And yet here we are in a foreign interference inquiry, and not only is there clear interference from China, but also from India and from Iran and Pakistan and Russia. We have, in fact, at the worst point in history when it comes to foreign interference, and we've had the same Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, for 9 years. So what does that say about his leadership or lack thereof? And I would also point out that the person in this country most responsible for foreign interference and preventing it and keeping national security safe is the Prime Minister of Canada. And so if we've had the same Prime Minister of Canada, and now this has come to such a point that 13 individuals, the RCMP had to announce 13 individuals are in peril because foreign interference has gotten so bad, what does that really say about his leadership? So what's interesting to me is that in the foreign interference inquiry, which he's made a farce of with his recent partisan attacks, that he's really trying to do two things. Number one, distract from his failed record to prevent foreign interference in this country. The fact that he's created an environment that's worse than ever at any time in Canadian history of foreign interference, that other foreign adversaries and others feel that we are a weak country, that they can bully under Prime Minister Trudeau's so-called leadership. And the second thing, of course, Mr. Chair, is that the Prime Minister is trying to distract from the fact that he has an ongoing revolt in his caucus looking to overthrow him. So it's no wonder why he's doing this, but certainly if he continues, as my colleague said, to weaponize this, then he should release the names because Canadians deserve to know.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Let's remember to smash the like. If we could, consider subscription and joining. We have a great gang here. We watch the federal politics every day. We're starting to do some international stuff. Anyway,
who it
smash
is
the like.
In Parliament right now or in the past who has been undermining the national interest on purpose to aid a foreign country. They absolutely deserve to know that, and those individuals need to be held accountable. And I would also say that it's interesting that he won't do so, and I wonder why that is. Well, perhaps it's because out of any party, it makes the Liberal Party look bad. Again, he was the one who denied that there was election interference from China, for example. He's the one who denied there was any issue here at all, and yet here we are. So he continues to deny that there's any issue there, but I would suspect that's why he's not releasing the names. So I think we could put this to bed. It's rapidly devolving into some McCarthy witch hunt as a result of the Prime Minister's actions, and I think we can easily clear this up today by releasing the names. Canadians deserve to know, and the Prime Minister should be showing leadership in this regard and ensuring that he's actually taking action on this intelligence. And I would say in the last thing, Mr. Chair, that it's not clear why we're taking intelligence if we're not able to utilize it to ensure that these individuals are held accountable. And if they're semi-witting or unwittingly knowing, then they should know, and they should be informed. And so I think it is imperative that Parliament learn who these people are, if any, and move forward with that information. And Mr. Chair, I'd also say that, again, the responsibility for national security lies with the Prime Minister. The only reason we are here is because he's failed to protect that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We go now to Mr. Gahir, please.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I think it's rich that the Conservatives are... I can hear an echo again. I think it's rich that the Conservatives are talking about this
He
issue
thinks
when their
it's
leader
rich. What a
engages in
bum.
willful blindness by burying his head in the sand and not getting top secret security clearance. He can quite literally get top secret clearance, learn the names of the people in his own party that are vulnerable or have been vulnerable to foreign interference, that have engaged with foreign governments, and then remove those names.
You guys can see what this clown is doing, right? Saying that Pierre Poilievre should... The reason that Trudeau can't make the right move is because Poilievre doesn't have clearance. They're passing the buck every time. I'm just so fed up with it because they think Canadians are stupid. I know that all the people in this room, when they're watching this and they see this guy lying to their face using this liberal bullshit tactic, that they know that he's lying or being deceptive or manipulative, and
names because he has ultimate power in his party. He can remove those names from his party. This motion, this sub-amendment that's been brought it's practically out of order because the RCP has stated this, CSIS has stated this, that anyone who reveals classified information is subject to the law equally. So obviously in this case, the names that are classified at this time, to reveal them publicly would be a criminal offense because, that's what this sub-amendment is asking. It's asking the Prime Minister to engage in a criminal offense. What we can see is from the last few months, for the last year, Ms. May and Mr. Singh from the Greens and NDP, respectively, have done a wonderful job commenting on this issue. And they have not been muzzled at all on this issue. So I think it's very rich that the leader of the Conservatives engages in this behavior, refuses to get top secret security clearance, and points fingers. I think this sub-amendment is a non-starter, and we should just go to a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gahir. We go now to Ms. Landsman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. While I appreciate members of this committee thinking that the motion is out of order because they don't like it, that's not exactly how it works. And I think what we're seeing now here at this committee is that there's only one party in this country that is calling for the release of this name and for the release of these names, the names that the Prime Minister has alluded to, the names that we know are being kept secret, and everyone else is trying to work to hide the names, particularly the changing stories of Miss May since before and after she read the briefings or she was briefed in. Now we see that the NDP are trying to distract from what was brought to this committee as a serious issue today, the serious issue of foreign interference by India, and they're now playing politics with it. Listen to this. I agree completely with Poilievre's decision not to take the bait. Trudeau has been trying for a year and a half to restrain what Pierre Poilievre can do by trying to say, come and get this private briefing. And, oh, by the way, then you'll be held to an official secret and that you won't be able to talk about this anymore. Do you know who said that, Mr. Chair? That was Thomas Mulcair. That was the leader of the NDP when the NDP used to be an opposition party that wasn't helping the Liberals cover this up. The question is what is the government trying to hide? Now, for everybody watching, they might not know that the CSIS Act allows the government to offer information to any Canadian about specific risks of foreign interference without forcing them into sworn secrecy or controlling what they say. But this motion particularly is about releasing the names that Canadians deserve to know of any parliamentarian in any party that has been wittingly associated with foreign interference, with a foreign government working against the interests of Canadians. But receiving a secret briefing would, even according to the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, would prevent the recipient from using that information in any manner. Now, I don't think that's very smart for an opposition party, one that only exists, the only opposition party that exists to force the Prime Minister to come clean with Canadians in what he is trying to hide. This particular motion that was dropped at committee makes a mockery, the same kind of mockery that the Trudeau government has repeatedly made with foreign interference. What we witnessed at the public inquiry this week was nothing more than well-rehearsed partisan smears by a failing Prime Minister who is facing rejection from Canadians from coast to coast, and increasingly from his own Liberal Party, ones that are having letter-writing campaigns to oust him from his leadership. And it is beyond rich for the Prime Minister to grandstand, given the record that his government has shown on not taking foreign interference seriously, with all of the benefits of the government agencies that he has, with all of the information that he was warned with, including in the Liberal Party, and the fact that he refused to act. It is this Prime Minister and his government who repeatedly claimed that they weren't aware of foreign interference happening right under their noses, despite a massive paper trail of warnings from officials. It is Justin Trudeau's government, which mysteriously sat, as we learned from the inquiry last week, on a CISA surveillance warning, a warrant application for a Liberal power broker for 54 days, and still there is no answers about that. The minister says he doesn't know. Other ministers say that he doesn't know. There are staffers who gave absolutely no answers at that commission. It is Justin Trudeau's party who willingly allowed Chinese high school students to vote in the now infamous Han Dong nomination race, and that was fine. It was Justin Trudeau who ignored calls from the leader of the opposition to release those names to Parliament. He has repeatedly done that, and now the entire country is asking for those names. You cannot go to the committee under the guise of providing information, drop that kind of partisan smear job on members of Parliament, and then not come clean with the names. And the only people that are looking to have those names told to the Canadian public is the Conservative Party. We are fighting now every single party that is working with Justin Trudeau and his government to cover up these names, and Canadians deserve to know. Canadians deserve to know which members of Parliament in which party, no matter what, are colluding with foreign governments wittingly or unwittingly. And unlike others who are willing to limit their ability to hold government to account on important issues of national security, Conservatives will not do that. And Mr. Poilievre will not be left under a gag order and left unable to speak about any of the information he receives. But all of that to say that these names have to come out. And they have to be, and there's only one person who can do that, and that's the Prime Minister of Canada. The government, through CSIS, is authorized by a particular section in the CSIS Act. It's section 12.1. He could act at any time to utilize threat reduction measures to notify the leader of a political party of issues concerning national security. He did not do that. Instead, he chose to make it public in an inquiry and cast aspersions with absolutely no evidence and no follow-through on letting Canadians know who those people are, who those members of Parliament is. This tool has been available to his government since he started, since 2015. He could use that tool to inform Mr. Poilievre, and he's not doing that. All of All of that to say is that the motion on the table is to release the names. Again, there is one party asking for this prime minister to release every single one of those names, and the other parties that are purportedly in opposition helping the prime minister hide those names, hide the identities of all of those members of parliament. The question really is to the entire committee is, what on earth are you hiding? What is the prime minister hiding? I think that's the question that we have to get to the bottom of in this committee, and I hope that members will vote for this amendment to make those names public for the betterment of our national security and for every Canadian to know who represents them and for every Canadian to know ahead of the next election who they are actually voting for, which country they are working for, and if they have Canadian best interests at heart. And only the Prime Minister can do that. Everything else is pure politics. That's what we've seen this week, and unfortunately, that's what we're seeing right now at this committee.
Thank you. We go now to Mr. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, we see this costly cover-up coalition in full force. Jagmeet Singh, in this fake theatrical performance that he probably learned from Justin Trudeau, pretended to rip up his so-called agreement. And then once he used the people of Winnipeg, he taped it right back up. And once again, we're seeing the Liberals and the NDP, and obviously the leader of the Green Party, try to cover up, divide, and distract Canadians from this flailing Prime Minister. This is such a serious issue of foreign interference happening, where the RCMP has alleged that members of the South Asian community have been targeted by a foreign government, in this case India, for allegations of murder, of extortion, of violent threats. And what do the Liberals and the NDP do? With the help of the Green Party, they want to distract away from that there's a Liberal revolt happening within Justin Trudeau's caucus. They want to distract Canadians away from the pain and misery Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh have caused them with the high cost of living by doubling their housing and making sure that there's more food bank usage than ever before in this country. And on top of all of that, letting Canada become a safe haven for and a playground for foreign interference. I'd like to just give one clear message to Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh from our common sense conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, in a letter he just recently wrote. Release the names of all MPs that have collaborated with foreign interference. We can put this whole thing to bed. Canadians want to know. Canadians want to know who are those MPs working in the best interest of foreign governments and not in the best interest of Canadians. It shouldn't be that hard to do. The CSIS Act allows, and the CSIS Act allows the government to offer information to any Canadian about specific risks of foreign interference without forcing them into sworn secrecy or controlling what they say. Receiving a secret briefing would, according to Justin Trudeau's Chief of Staff, prevent the recipient from using the information in any manner. And even where that is not the case, briefing political parties on sensitive intelligence regarding an MP could put the leader or representation of a political party in a tough position, because any decision affecting the MP might have to be made without giving them due process. So, in clear words, Justin Trudeau and the NDP are trying to muzzle not just the leader of the Conservative Party, but all Canadians. Justin Trudeau doesn't need to wait for an inquiry. According to the CSIS Act, he can walk over to Pierre Poilievre and give him the names. He doesn't need to continue to muzzle. He muzzled the NDP leader, so because of greed for his $2.2 million pension, and he's also obviously muzzled the Green Party leader. And this is why Canadians are so fed up and want an election now. Common sense Conservatives are the only party inside the House of Commons and outside the House of Commons that are calling to release the names now. Can you imagine that there's people sitting in the House of Commons today that are not working in the best interest of Canadians? This can include anyone. Can you believe that a sitting member of the House of Commons could have major implications on trade deals, doing what's in the best interest of foreign governments and not in the best interest of Canadians?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Ms. Khalid, on a point of order?
So right here, we've got Iker Khalid's going to step in. What do you think she's going to talk about? That she appreciates and she understands, but doesn't understand why that we want answers. Like, she's such a sack of blood and guts.
Yes, thank you. I do take a lot of exception to the member calling the integrity of the members of parliament in our parliament into question with what he's saying. I take major exception to that.
That would be Standing Order 18, and I would advise members to be cognizant of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, Mr. Speaker, we see once again the Liberals will do anything to distract away.
Point of order again, Mr. Chair. I don't appreciate if the member has points to raise on his motion, as is absolutely his right, please do so. Please don't try to call into question the integrity of the members that are in this chamber.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Was that Ms. Lanceman?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Just want to remind the member that it's the Prime Minister himself at the inquiry that called into question the integrity of members of Parliament by naming parties and affiliations without actually putting the names down, and that's exactly what we're arguing here today.
Thank you, Mr. Halen. You were.
Thank you to the great Melissa Lanceman from Thornhill, our co-deputy leader, for that clarification. I also didn't know hurt feelings could be point of orders, because that's what it seems like the Liberals keep
Point of
doing
order
now.
again, Mr. Chair. Don't.
Ms. Khalid,
please
on a point
don't.
of order, please.
I don't mean to keep interrupting, but Jasraj Halan is hysterical as well. Not just smart and well-spoken, but funny.
It's not nice. Make your arguments as the right of every parliamentarian in committees. Let's not call people names. Let's not go down this path. Let's be respectful, please, of everybody.
Thank you for your point of order, and point is well taken. Please, everybody, try to be polite to each other.
I'll continue, Mr. Speaker. Hopefully I'm not interrupted because of hurt feelings. But furthermore to our leader's letter to Justin Trudeau, furthermore, my Chief of Staff has received classified briefings from the government, and at no time has the government told me or my Chief of Staff of any current or former...
Sorry, gang, don't know what just happened right there. What in the hell? Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participating in foreign interference. This is in stark contrast of what the Prime Minister has alleged and what we've heard Ms. May flip-flop on from when she said she took the briefing to now and to what the NDP is claiming. Our leader goes on to say if Justin Trudeau has evidence to the contrary, he should share it with the public. Now that he has blurted it out in general terms at a commission of inquiry, he should release the facts. But he won't, because he is making it up. Justin Trudeau is doing what he always does. He is lying. He is lying to distract from a Liberal caucus revolt.
Mr. Singh, it is inappropriate parliamentary language to refer to a member as lying.
I just want to get some clarification. I'm reading a letter that was sent to the Prime Minister.
Okay. It's not acceptable.
Thank you. I'll retract the lying, but I will say what our leader is saying in general is that Justin Trudeau is misleading. It's what he always does. He's distracting from a Liberal caucus revolt against his leadership and revelations. He knowingly allowed Beijing to interfere and help him win 2 elections. It is beyond rich for Justin Trudeau to grandstand, given that the record now shows that he and his government, with all the benefits of government agencies, were repeatedly warned about foreign interference, including within the Liberal Party, and he refused to act. If Justin Trudeau and his government, who repeatedly claim that they just weren't aware of foreign interference happening right under their noses, despite a paper trail of warnings from officials. It is Justin Trudeau's government which mysteriously sat on a CSIS surveillance warrant application for a Liberal power broker for 54 days. It is Justin Trudeau's party that willingly allowed the PRC consulate to bus in PRC international high school students to vote in the now infamous Han Dong nomination race. It is also Justin Trudeau who has ignored our leaders' calls to release the names of parliamentarians referenced in this spring's NCCOP report who have wittingly worked for the benefit of foreign governments against the interest of Canadians. This is nothing but a cover-up. Once again, Justin Trudeau, with the help of the NDP, are just trying to distract away from the pain and misery and the foreign interference they have allowed in this country after 9 years. This is nothing but politics for these people. This has nothing to do with the safety and security of Canadians, the democracy that we should be upholding, or the sovereignty of Canada is not being upheld by these parties. It is only the Conservative Party that is asking for full transparency and to release the names. That's what this is all about. Well, we're calling the bluff of this costly coalition, this cover-up coalition now. Just release the names. Release the names of those MPs that are not working in the best interest of Canadians. It is that simple. There should be no excuse now. There should be no reason for anyone to doubt that any parliamentarian that is duly elected to the House of Commons is not working in the best interest of Canadians. I also want to mention that it's this Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who admitted at the public inquiry that there are Liberal names and names from every party. Conservatives are not scared of names being released. We're saying release the names now. It's only this cover-up coalition of the Liberals and the NDP who are afraid. What we want to know is, what do they have to hide? What do they have to hide? They're scared to go to an election because they're scared of Canadians, but they're willfully letting foreign interference, which includes threats, violence, extortions, and even alleged murder happening in this country to Canadians, all just so that they can cover up for their incompetency. This is 9 years of Justin Trudeau with the help of Jagmeet Singh.
Thank you very much, Cryptomaria. Appreciate it a great deal.
I'll make it clear one more time. Common sense Conservatives are asking for the names to be released immediately so that Canadians can feel safe once again on Canadian soil. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll go now to Ms. May. Ms. May, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my friends and colleagues around the table. I do want to make it very clear to my friend from Coton and St. Paul's and to Melissa Lansman as well. I haven't changed my position at all. I don't own any flip-flops. I don't flip-flop. I stand on principle. I was trained as a lawyer. I'm honored to have been admitted to the bar of Nova Scotia and Ontario. And so when I went through the process of getting top secret security clearance, I was very mindful of what I can say and what I couldn't say. I was quite sure that when David Johnston, his former special rapporteur, opened the door for the first time, that leaders of opposition parties could seek top secret security clearance and potentially obtain it. You don't get it as of right. Have they uncovered something in my past that would make me subject to blackmail or intimidation or be compromised through any form of interference, I wouldn't have gotten top secret security clearance. I would have been denied it. Now, to go to the matter of, did my story change? Not one bit. I read the report, the unredacted version of the report of the Committee of Parliamentarians. Before I spoke publicly, and I think it's important for me to explain to my colleagues how I navigated this, How do you obtain top secret security clearance, read information that must by law remain secret, and still talk about it? Well, the answer is you're careful as you navigate. So the notes I plan to use in a press conference, I shared with security agencies. I want my colleagues around the table to know that some things I had intended to say that I thought would be non-controversial and not reveal any secrets included the exact number of people who were considered witting or semi-witting. I repeat again that I do not believe any of our colleagues currently serving in Parliament, at least in terms of the report I read. There may be other information. Certainly the Prime Minister has had other kinds of briefings that I haven't had. But based on the text of the report of the Committee of Parliamentarians, on which our colleagues from the Liberal Party, Bloc Québécois, NDP, and Conservatives put an enormous amount of work. Our colleagues read 33,000 pages of top secret security material and condensed it into a report that they could all stand behind. And then with some deletions and other modifications to make it publicly accessible, that became public information. I was able to read the report unredacted. I stand by every word I said. But before I said a word, because I wasn't gagged, clearly, I was able to talk about it. But I went through my notes with security experts to make sure I didn't inadvertently violate any laws of Canada or inadvertently place at risk any of our intelligence assets. So to my colleagues around the table, I want you to know that I actually edited and changed what I was going to say in a press conference, not taking out names, but even the number of people who might be considered semi-witting, in any way potentially compromised. That's to say, again, I repeat, no one currently serving in Parliament, to my knowledge, in the House of Commons, has been compromised or is serving the interests of a foreign government. There are some people who have been referenced as semi-witting, but even the number, the numerical categorization of how many people might fall in that category, I was told clearly, could not be said publicly without placing at risk the lives of our intelligence assets around the world. I want my colleagues to understand this isn't a game. This isn't politics. I'm not playing games here. I'm telling you how it is when you navigate with top secret security clearance, what you can say and what you can't say. So the amendment to this motion would release all the names sounds grand if you operate in ignorance of the law and in ignorance of how security and intelligence operatives and intelligence and security information gathering operates in the real world where there are bad people. And we have to be careful as members of Parliament not to allow political rhetoric to get in the way of what we do to serve Canadians. So I just wanted to clear that up. I hope it helps. We can't just say release all the names if we're operating in ignorance of the ongoing knock-on effects that could have in terms of endangering lives of intelligence assets of Canada. I've navigated this as carefully as I can because I think it's really critical that Canadians know as much as we possibly can share without violating national security. I think this committee is on a good path in choosing to have an investigation. I do again believe that it's important to clear up any suggestion that foreign interference had an impact on the Conservative leadership race. That's an obvious point. That's already out there in public. That's on page 32, paragraph 72 of the public version of the Committee of Parliamentarians report. I think Mr. Poilievre would want to know himself exactly what is referenced there and get a top secret security clearance unless there's some reason he thinks he won't get it. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't want to obtain it. I think I've made it clear, and I think Mr. Singh, as leader of the Democratic Party, has made it clear. Mr. Blanchet is still in the process of getting his top secret security clearance, that we believe we can serve the people of Canada and share the information that we can share without breaking the law and help all Canadians understand. And I wrote each individual leader of all the parties in the House of Commons to please get top secret security clearance so we could meet as a group, as a unified force, and tell foreign powers, whether Russia or the People's Republic of China or India or any of the sources of foreign interference, that we operate in Canada as a solid wall to tell foreign powers, we're not giving you space here. We unify, we pull together, and for that, it would certainly be helpful if all the leaders of all the federal political parties obtained top secret security clearance so we could work together without risking violating the security establishment and the safety and security of people, non-Canadians, somewhere else around the world, who are sharing information with our operatives. Those people must not be placed at risk because of reckless political rhetoric here at home. Anyway, I do wish that this committee is able to continue on the study, and the kind of accusations of one party versus another are kept to a bare minimum. I guess it's impossible to avoid it altogether, but I haven't changed my story, not one bit. I do believe that you can have top secret security clearance and navigate that responsibility, and it's an onerous responsibility to respect the security establishment of this country, navigate it, and share with Canadians that we have in terms of elected members of parliament, and again, I repeat this, not one person that has actively worked against the interests of Canada. There are, as we said, the category that the committee used and the language they used, witting or semi-witting. It's unusual language, but that's the language they used. And there are some people in that category. But on my reading of the unredacted version of the report, the semi-witting or witting category of MPs have not committed acts that fall into the category of proactive betrayal of their country's interests. Those names and even the number of people in that category, I have been warned by people in our security establishment, must not be shared publicly. Therefore, I'm uncomfortable with the idea that we can just taunt various people, just make it all public. I'm not hiding anything. I do my best to be transparent, and that's why I'm grateful for the chance to take the floor again. I hope that has helped clear things up. I do hope we can all be on the same side here of getting as much information as we can, because we've moved from where we were when David Johnson was made special rapporteur with the concern how much have foreign interests interfered in our elections. We're now looking at very clear accusations that the RCMP uncovered a network of operatives reporting to a criminal element within India operating on Canadian soil to endanger lives. They're very different categories of foreign interference, and they all require deep respect and a degree of caution in how we go forward so we don't betray any information that must be kept secure and secret in the interests of our ability to work with Five Eyes partners and be understood to be a country where secure and secret information remains respected and stays secure and secret. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. May. We go now to Mr. Upal, followed by Mr. McGregor. Mr. Upal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think, first of all, I must say that this committee started off discussing a very serious issue, an issue of national security, issue of protecting Canadians, an issue where addressing the very serious matter where RCMP made allegations of murder, extortion, organized crime, intimidation, coercion by agents of the Indian government. And there was agreement by this committee to move forward and address that. And it's unfortunate that we have now gone into a place where we are discussing and debating issue of how the NDP and the Liberals are working together to cover up names of MPs, not wanting to release names of MPs who have not been working in the best interest of Canadians. Ms. May talked about how she cannot release those names, that she cannot release the names. She, in fact, cannot take any action based on the information that she has, because she's has taken that clearance and read the name. She has the information, but she cannot release the name. She cannot do anything with that information, and that is particularly the point. Receiving a secret briefing would, according to Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister's own Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, prevent a recipient from using the information in any manner. So essentially, that person who receives the briefing would not be able to use or do anything with that briefing. It is a gag order. It is not allowing that person to take any action, to discuss it with the information that they have. And then it goes on. She goes on to say, even where that it is not the case, briefing political parties on sensitive intelligence regarding an MP could put the leader or representative of a political party in a tough position, because any decision affecting the MP might have to be made without giving them due process. So that is why that this is a better situation. What would be the better situation is for the Prime Minister, because he brought this up at the Hague Commission. He is the one that came out and said, yes, there are Liberals on that list and members from other parties on that list, and he should bring that information forward. He should bring it publicly. He should release those names. In that way, that political party leaders can take action that they see fit based on those names, based on that information. Because otherwise, as Ms. May herself has said, that you cannot take any action. You cannot discuss those names and you cannot release them. And so, for that reason, that is a better way to go. And within the CSIS Act, there actually is provision to be able to give the leader of a party sensitive information, pertinent information, especially when it comes to the national security of the nation. So all of that process is available, and Justin Trudeau, as the Prime Minister, can give that information to any political leader, or he can release those names publicly. We would say release them publicly, because if there are members of Parliament who have been elected by Canadian citizens, by their electorate, and they are not working in the best interest of Canadians, then that information should be made public. That is the best way to deal with this. Canadians deserve to know who these people are. And getting back to the situation that we originally were dealing with, we were on foreign interference, and this is, coming out of that, is that on foreign interference there are a number of steps that could have been taken to protect Canadians. And it's unfortunate that we are now on this very serious issue of foreign interference, that we are now we are discussing the NDP and the Liberals playing political games when we should be discussing how we can stop foreign interference. One of the allegations that the RCMP have made, very serious allegation against agents of the Indian government, is that they were taking part in extortion against Canadians. And we have heard in the last number of months, over a year now, where very serious cases of extortion are happening across the country. There have been shootings at homes. There have been homes that have been burnt down. Over a dozen brand new built homes in Edmonton were burnt down. There have been businesses that have been shot at. Some alleged to have been directed by international gangsters. These are issues that we should be looking at, that we should be debating. I brought forward a private member's bill, Bill C-381, that would have given stricter penalties to anybody who takes part in extortion, mandatory minimum sentences to keep extortionists in jail longer, minimum penalties for at least 3 years if somebody commits extortion, 4 years mandatory minimum sentence if somebody was to commit extortion using a firearm, and 5 years of mandatory minimum sentence for someone who would commit extortion in connection with organized crime. And this links back to exactly what the RCMP has alleged, that agents of the Indian government are working with organized crime in Canada and particularly in a organized crime unit out of India, the Bishnoi Group, to extort Canadians here on Canadian soil. So that last provision of mandatory minimums convicting anyone that is involved in organized crime and extortion would get 5 years minimum, that is minimum, to be in jail. Now, unfortunately, all of the NDP members in the House of Commons and Liberals voted against that bill. And it is unfortunate that when we talk about in this place about protecting Canadians and taking steps to ensure that Canadians are kept safe, that ensure that Canadians are able to express themselves freely, to have political opinions that are different than others, and to do so in a peaceful manner, that when solutions come forward, the Liberals and the NDP do not take action. They did not vote in favor of that bill. They essentially are saying that they're fine with not keeping extortionists in jail longer. And that, again, really speaks to how serious are they about addressing these issues. And that's, and even right now, the issue that we are dealing with right now goes along in the same manner that we should be discussing ways of stopping foreign interference from any country, including India, not looking at ways to make cheap political points, as they are doing right now. On the issue of a security clearance, the same day that the RCMP made these very serious allegations, the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, received a briefing from Canada's security agencies. So he received all the information. He got the same briefing that the leader of the NDP, JAGMEET Singh, got. So provisions are there to be able to give the leader of the opposition the information that is required without gagging him, without him not being able to speak about that information, not being able to take action against that information. And when it comes to the names of members of Parliament who have not been working in the interests of Canadians or colluding with a foreign nation, and this is actually an issue that the Prime Minister brought up. I know Liberal member was saying that we should not raise to suggest that some members of Parliament in this place may be colluding with a foreign government or cast aspersions on other members of Parliament. It was actually the Prime Minister himself that did so. And those names can and should be released. Canadians deserve to know who those members of Parliament are. No other individual, whether it's a party leader, just like Elizabeth May herself has said that she cannot release that information. Nobody else can do that, but the Prime Minister can. And if there is serious national security issues that the leader of the opposition should know, CSIS has the ability within the CSIS Act to provide that information to the Prime Minister, to the leader of the opposition, future Prime Minister, to ensure that he can take appropriate action. And so instead of going down this path of the NDP helping the Liberals cover up these names, of the NDP and the Liberals getting together to make these cheap political points, I think this committee should continue back with originally what we started off with, of dealing with the very serious issue of foreign interference, the very serious issue of Canadians being assassinated, murdered on Canadian soil, of extortion taking place across the country, organized crime being used by a foreign government, intimidation of Canadians, coercion of Canadians. This is a matter of our sovereignty, our democracy. And this committee now has, because of the NDP and the Liberals, has turned into trying to make cheap political points. And I would suggest that we get back to the very important issue, there are a number of questions that we have as Canadians that we should have. I mean, if the RCMP has alleged that a foreign gang is using gangsters in Canada and international gangsters to carry out the extortion and the other organized crime and intimidation, then how is it that those Canadians, that those people are in Canada? Why are those people in Canada? And also that through our National Task Force and other investigative efforts, the RCMP has obtained evidence that demonstrates for very, very serious issues. These are issues that we should be addressing here. Violent extremists impacting both countries. This is an issue that this committee should be looking into. Links tying agents of the government of India to homicides and violent acts that are happening here in Canada. There are the use of organized crime. Like I said, they're using, they are actually named an international gang to create perception of unsafe environment targeting the South Asian community in Canada. And interference in our democratic processes. Investigations have revealed that Indian diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leverage their official position to engage in clandestine activities. These are very, very serious issues. And I must say that these issues are very serious, but they're also ones that have been very difficult to speak to Canadians about. I've got a number of phone calls from members of the Sikh community and others from across the country, but also conversations that I've had to have with my children. They're old enough now to hear about information and hear news, and they're also concerned about what's happening in our country. I know, talk to many Canadians that say, it's not the same country. It's not this country that they came to, the country that has that safety and security. And after 9 years of this government, we are not as safe as many people used to believe, and as safe as people were. And there are a number of ways that information can be shared in order to protect Canadians. Because what the Prime Minister wants to do is to have our leader essentially be gagged, be sworn into secrecy, that he be provided some information, but then not be able to talk about it, not be able to tell Canadians about it, not be able to take any action on it. And the CSIS already has ways of providing that information to the leader. In fact, the Treasury Board Secretariat Policy on Government Security, there is provisions there where they can provide that information to the leader. Cabinet ministers and possibly privy councillors can be provided that information. There is the NSICOP committee that has been provided that information. And like I said before, there's the threat reduction measures, which is commonly known as TRM, under Section 12.1 of the CSIS Act, where this information can be provided to the leader of the opposition to be able to take action as appropriate. So I'll say that as for the names of MPs who have been possibly working or colluding with, knowingly or unknowingly, and the leaders of the different parties, because there are Liberals on that list, I believe the Prime Minister also said NDPs, but I know he specifically mentioned Conservatives to make that political point, but there are Liberals on that list as well, and the leaders of those parties, with that information, if provided, the information is provided properly, can take action as they see fit. I also think that the information should be provided publicly. And I think it's, like I've said, that it is important that we get back to the very important issue of foreign interference in this country. Let's drop this kind of attempt at making political points here in this committee and work at taking steps of protecting Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Going now to Mr. McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to have the opportunity to address a few of the points that my Conservative colleagues have made. And I am going to do so in a respectful manner, and I'm not going to resort to petty insults. First of all, I raised this point because given Monday's revelations, I think it is incredibly important for Canada to show a united front. And right now, we're at a stage where the only federal party leader who is refusing to get top security clearance is Mr. Poilievre of the Conservatives. This has gotten to a stage now where his continued refusal to get this clearance is raising far more questions than is necessary. And, in terms of, I don't know what his motives are. I know the Conservatives keep on talking about him being gagged. It certainly hasn't prevented our leader, JAGMEET Singh, from talking openly and frankly about this in a way that does not risk top security information. I think, perhaps for Mr. Poilievre, ignorance is bliss. Perhaps it allows him to continue talking on Twitter and to Canadians about things he absolutely knows nothing about. And maybe he just simply wants to have that freedom to keep on spouting off nonsense and remain in ignorance. I don't know. That's up to him. But he can still refuse to take the clearance. This is simply asking him to do so. It's not even naming him in the motion. It's simply asking that all federal party leaders get the necessary security clearance levels so that we can take the necessary actions to protect Canadians. I do want to address some of the points that my Conservative colleagues have been making about how this would prevent a party leader from taking action. I completely disagree with that, and here's why. We know that in political parties, the leader wields an enormous amount of power. The leader is able to determine who in caucus has what parliamentary roles. The leader is able to determine who gets to run under the party's banner in the next election. They have to sign the nomination papers. And so if Mr. Poilievre was to get this security clearance, and if he was to learn of certain individuals within his own party, and I'm not singling out the Conservatives because we've heard allegations of members in the Liberal Party, but what it would allow him to do is to take the necessary internal actions to maybe isolate those individuals, and if it's very serious, to prevent them from running as members of Parliament under the Conservative Party banner in the next election. He could do all of that without having to breach the top security rules that are in place that prevent the divulgence of this information. So it is false to claim that he can't take action when in fact he could. If there's a compromised member of Parliament or someone who comes over the threshold of suspicious activities on behalf of a foreign power, Mr. Poilievre could prevent that individual from running in the next election, and that would inoculate us from having that person in the House of Commons in the 45th Parliament. So that is a direct action that the leader can take. I also take issue with the way the Conservatives are trying to frame the NDP. We've had two members of our caucus for whom this issue is deeply personal. They have been directly impacted by this. Jenny Kwan and JAGMEET Singh. So I take great issue with them saying that we are doing this for politics. This is a serious and personal issue for our party. It has directly impacted the lives of two of our caucus members. And that needs to be understated. Both China and India have directly impacted two of my fellow caucus members. So this is a very serious issue for us. And it is an issue that our leader takes very seriously, and that is why he took the appropriate steps to get his security clearance, which allows him to take actions that I may not be privy to, but I can operate in a way knowing that the leader has got the information he needs to govern his own caucus accordingly, and that's what we're asking for every party leader to do with their respective caucuses. So to show the Conservatives that I do support us in some way releasing these names. Because the other thing I want to also put on point, I've had many conversations with members of the security and intelligence community, both at committee and in private conversations. And these are their words, not mine. There is a wide gulf between evidence and intelligence. This needs to be underlined. So we can't just go about releasing the names without understanding that key point. And I don't want to repeat what Ms. May said, but there is a very real danger that we could compromise the way we got that information. So what the Conservatives are essentially asking us to do with their sub-amendment right now is to potentially put our own intelligence operatives at risk. And I think for anyone who sits at this committee, that is completely unacceptable. Again, these are not my words. These are words coming directly from the intelligence and security community. And they know this because they have heard those exact same words from those members at this committee table and in conversations they've had in private with those individuals. So, Mr. Chair, I am going to propose a sub-amendment to Mr. Lloyd's amendment to my motion. Now, his amendment was tacked on to the end, and it simply read that we release the names of all members of Parliament and parliamentarians who are alleged to have interfered and knowingly colluded with foreign powers. My sub-amendment to this would read as follows: that the government release the names of all members of Parliament and all parliamentarians who are alleged to have interfered and knowingly colluded with foreign powers while protecting national security and those who gathered the intelligence. Jenny Kwan, our leader, have said it very much on the record. We would love for the Canadian public to know these names. I hate the fact that I have to serve in the House of Commons with this cloud of suspicion hanging over us. I think Canadians deserve to know. I mean, this caused a huge uproar when that NSICOP report was released in June. But we also have to respect the very real concerns that our intelligence community has repeatedly relayed to this community and to this committee and to its members. And so I do believe that if there is a way of publicly releasing these names, it needs to be done in a very careful fashion, and it needs to be done in a way that is fully coordinated with our national security and intelligence partners on this file. I am not going to support just simply releasing the names with no context, but I will support a non-political, professional way of releasing the names that has the full support of members of the RCMP and CSIS. And if Conservative members are willing to publicly say that they support the important work of those agencies, I hope they will support this sub-amendment to their amendment. I'll conclude there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. We are substantially over time, and we have our resources run out at 11:30. So I will suspend at this point. We will resume this discussion on Tuesday. Meeting suspended.
All right, gang. So I thought there was going to be a break in there, but there wasn't. We've got more to show. Got a couple of Indian videos from India news. And before we get into that, I'm going to take a crack at saying hello to the people that I can see. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss people here because it has a list here of people that I've interacted with. Sorry if you're not on the list. I try to catch everybody. I do find it important. Two Flips, my man. What is up? Ehren Dupuis, what's going on? Annie G, you're a funny lady. Autumn Christensen, you're funny too. Kristen, you're funny too. Winter Kristen. Brent Parsons, good to see you. I've been missing you, buddy. Did you find a place to live? Broken Prophet, what's going on? Data Sender, how's it going? Funny person as well. Dave B, all you guys crack me up, man. Dave Jodan, what's up? Denise Dubé, what is going on? Derek Sittler, what's shaking? Digger D, what's going on? My man, Dimebag Coins, thank you for all the help. Gus Pappas, how you doing, man? All you guys are funny. Harry Taint, you're funny. Hoof Hardit, you're funny. KG Kennedy, newer to the group, not really familiar with your comments yet. Welcome, glad that you're here. Kenzie Kraken, you always make me laugh. There's a funny group here, man. Captain Kirk, thank you so much for helping me out every day. Puts hours into this. Man, crazy. Mike Duncan, welcome back, brother. Mama T, good to see you. What is shaking? My 2 cents. Welcome to the chat. We're here every day, so come and check us out. Pierrette Gagnon, what's going on? Did you say you're in BC? I don't know why, but I thought you were Quebecois. I don't know why. Rita D'Alessandro, what's going on, girl? Good to see you. Roban Rock Green, what is up? Good to see you today. Rock Girl, you cracked me up in here. Rory Kennedy, brother, how you doing? What is up? Rayman, what's going on, brother? Salty Berry Apothecary, what's shaking? Scott Campbell, my brother, what's going on? Storm, good to see you. It's always more pleasant when you're in the chat room. TaylorMade, good to see you. And True Blue, one of the people that have been with me, I think, since the very beginning, hanging out with me. Appreciate that. No joke. I probably missed Rickety. I always miss Rickety. You don't show up in the list, Rickety. I don't know why. It's probably in your settings. You probably have some privacy, I don't know why, but you never show up on my list. Anyhow, let's get into these videos because we do have some interesting pieces to show. How do we do this? Just like this.
Justin Trudeau thought that his diplomatic onslaught on India could actually help in boosting his sliding popularity in his own country. He could not have been more wrong. Now, since triggering a full diplomatic war with India, the Canadian Prime Minister is being mocked and ridiculed. He's being mocked and ridiculed by India.
Again, with a grain of salt, we're going to watch news from any news station because they all have their own agendas in their corporate. I don't know really what it's like in India. Besides, I have friends that are from India, like recently moved here, and they're good people, man. Hard workers, honest, funny people. Great food, but I don't know.
By the Canadian media, by think tanks, and even YouTubers now. Trudeau and his former ally, Khalistani sympathizer JAGMEET.
Smash the like, consider subscribing, join up, grab a membership, check us out. We're doing stuff all the time. Thank you very much. I love this chat room. I'm not going to lie. I look forward to it as soon as the show is over for the next day.
Singh are being blamed for worsening the ties with India. Take a look at this story.
I think it is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion or other violent acts. It is absolutely unacceptable.
Justin Trudeau's tirade against India didn't just get a fierce counter from New Delhi, but even Canadian media and think tanks have been criticizing him for making allegations without providing credible evidence and for spreading misinformation regarding the Khalistani threat. In an article published in the Canadian newspaper, The National Post, senior journalist and author John Ehren noted that Canada has allowed Sikh extremism to flourish within its borders. He further alleged that Prime Minister Trudeau has allowed diaspora politics to unduly influence foreign policy and criticized the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for making serious statements against India without providing any proof. The same view was echoed by Daniel Bodman, a senior correspondent for the National Telegraph, who noted that this could end up costing Canada billions in trade and that Trudeau's move was to appease Jagmeet Singh and the gang of Khalistani ministers.
So no one believes Justin Trudeau is telling the truth here in Canada. He doesn't have any domestic support. It's just, he is just spitting in the eye of a powerful ally, for is it domestic vote bank politics at this point? Maybe. I mean, is he so desperate to keep the record of #1 Khalistani over Jagmeet Singh? Who knows?
Trudeau is also being accused of worsening the diplomatic situation by failing to address the concerns raised by New Delhi. Trudeau's former ally and Khalistani sympathizer, Canadian MP Jagmeet Singh, is also in the line of fire. He's being mocked for demanding sanctions against Indian diplomats. Yes, you heard that right. Against Indian diplomats, not India.
We got the RCMP that said that Indian diplomats were hiring criminal elements to shoot at Canadians. I can't see why we would do anything other than put in place severe sanctions on those diplomats, on Indian diplomats.
You're not saying that, you're leaving open that assumption.
This is the last question, if you want.
We're going to let her... He's gone.
He's gone. Also, that's still not how it works.
Yeah. Trudeau's desperate ploy to deflect attention from his flagging popularity and domestic politics is finding few takers even within Canada. Bureau Report, India Today.
News that's coming in at the moment. It's Congress MP Channi who's echoing what Canada has been saying. Congress MP says central agencies are involved. Who's creating these gangsters? The centre must resolve issues with Canada. Many Punjabis are living in Canada. With regards to that, now we have seen how Channi, Congress MP, is asking questions of the central government, and he's also saying who's creating these gangsters. Agencies have been involved. The centre must resolve issues with Canada. Many Punjabis are living in Canada.
ਸਾਡਾ ਹਰ ਦੂਸਰਾ ਚੌਥਾ ਘਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਕੁੜੀ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੈਠਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੈ ਸਾਡਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੈ ਹਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਖਰਾਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਧਾਰੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਰੋਜ਼ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਹੁਣ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਹੈ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਚ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਏਜੰਸੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਇਨਵੋਲਵਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੂਸੇਵਾਲ ਦਾ ਕਤਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਰਾਜਨੀਤਿਕ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਹੋਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਮਝ ਆ ਜਾਏਗੀ
Now, amid the diplomatic controversy that's taking place between India and Canada, both the United States of America and the United Kingdom are in fact backing Canada. Both US and UK are saying Canada's allegations against New Delhi with regards to the involvement of the killing of the Khalistani activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar are very serious in nature. In fact, both the countries are now asking India to cooperate in Canada's investigation. Take a look at this story.
Trudeau's war on India is steadily escalating. 48 hours after India and Canada took relations to an all-time low, there's suspense over where things will go next. While India has aggressively responded to Trudeau and expelled the top leadership of Canada's High Commission, Trudeau will find at least a little solace in the support he's getting from the Five Eyes, an intelligence coalition of Caucasian nations. The strongest support, unsurprisingly, came from the United States.
We have made clear that the allegations are extremely serious and they need to be taken seriously, and we wanted to see the government of India cooperate with Canada in its investigation. Obviously, they have not chosen that path.
America's placeholder support may come off as alarming, but it's fully on expected lines, considering that Trudeau is unlikely to have declared such a high-level diplomatic war without a sign-off from Washington. Also, the United States has itself clearly signalled that it sees Khalistani separatist terrorists on its soil as intelligence assets against India. But it isn't just the US that Trudeau needs to burnish his diplomatic war against India. Caught in conflict with an assertive Modi government, the Canadian Prime Minister has been dialing leaders of the other nations under what is seen as the White World's espionage club. New Zealand backed Canada, but with caution, even refusing to name India in its statement. The Australian Prime Minister also issued a statement, but held off on naming India. The United Kingdom also issued a statement, but mentioned India, saying the government of India's cooperation with Canada's legal process is the right next step. 3 of the Five Eyes members are also part of the G7 economic grouping. That's where the sanctions talk comes in too. Though Canada risks billions of dollars in trade if the conflict with India snowballs, there's the Five Eyes that the Trudeau government would like to leverage as the issue takes a turn for the worse. Bureau Report, India Today.
Days are wide awake, visions are for crazy men. Not me, for goodness sake, but I'm seeing things.
All right, we're going to take a second crack. I still don't understand why names don't show up on my list, but especially the members I want to give shout outs. Anna G, what's up? Derek Sittler, how you doing, brother? Rory Kennedy, you don't show up on my list very often. I don't know why. Only in the conversation. Scott Campbell, my man. Storm, what's going on? Data Sender, I think I missed you when I was doing the shout outs earlier. And I don't know why. Rita D'Alessandro, what's going on? Genghis Tron, what's shaking, baby? Kenzie, I think I missed you as well. I don't remember saying it. No, I do now. I do think that this stuff is important. Two Flips. Anyhow, that's dead air. So
I'm seeing things. I'm seeing things, believe me, I've never seen before. My little things deceive me, like when you threw me out the door. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Sorry, gang, I got mixed up there. I haven't eaten yet today, and so the brain is kind of shutting down. We're going to wrap up right here. I appreciate you all watching. It's frustrating to watch these Liberals, NDP, that coalition, and then to see Liz May in there giving her 2 cents, speaking holier than thou, saying that she's bound by her duty. That's a crock of shit right there. Like, how condescending is that? She's leader of the Green Party. We'd be a lot better off if there wasn't one. And currently, 15 years ago, things would have been different, but the world has changed, and these corporations are coming after your standard of living. That's how it is. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and hopefully you'll have a great weekend. We might do a couple of live shows over the weekend. Not sure what we're going to do yet. That's it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Ehren, Canadian Looney. Like, share, subscribe, get notified, all those fun things. And consider signing up. We are doing more content for members. That's going to be beneficial to be part of the group. Anyhow, I just appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat room. Such a bunch of pleasant people. And that is it. That's where we're going to wrap. I miss my man, James Vahey. I don't remember saying James's name. What's up, brother James? Anyhow, you guys have a great weekend. We're going out on, what are we going out on? We're going out on the way that we came in. I do like this.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Oh, yeah.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Wiggle and squirm as you might, it is really hard to put lipstick on a pig.
When I'm Prime Minister, I will keep my promises.
WTF.
Here.
I know this place is where I am. No other place is better than. No matter where I go, I am proud to be Canadian. I am, you know I the one we call Canadian.
Gentlemen, beam me aboard.
All right, gang, have a great weekend. I'm out. Smash the like, subscribe. We're here every day watching Canadian politics. I don't mean to get wound up, but when they're lying right to me, I know that you guys see the same thing. Like, any functioning brain would know that you're being lied to. Like, it's not like they're good at what they're doing. It's not like they're poker players and they're bluffing us. They're blatantly lying, hiding behind the law, and manipulating it in any way that they can contort it. And they're arrogant and smug about it. It's a bad combination. I'll tell you, none of those mofos want to bump into me at the grocery store. Because, like, I'm not talking about assault or anything, but they would get an earful. Let me tell you. Like, they would care, right? I guess that's my own ego. They don't care. They don't care about us. They only care about themselves and, I guess, their money. I guess that's probably at the base why they're really doing it, is financial motivation, because it's not popularity, because they're hated. People hate the Liberals. Like, they hate them. JAGMEET is hated across the nation. Like, if he came here to this little community, man, he would be treated like the piece of trash that he is. Again, they just get me wound up because they're lying to good people like us. Like, that we're conditioned to trust politicians. And they're taking advantage of that, and look at what they've done. How's your standard of living? If your standard of living has improved, then either you got lucky or you probably didn't do something. Possibly you got lucky. That does happen. Hard work pays off. All that sometimes does. Not very often these days, man. Anyhow, that's it. I'm going to wrap up. Go and get a bite to eat. Anyways, have a great weekend, guys. We've got lots of videos coming up. Come check them out. Yeah, I've got a couple that are ready to go. And we'll be working on a couple of things right after we have something to eat. Thank you all so much. Kirk, Dime Bag Coins, appreciate all your help and support. Welcome to the new people that just found the channel today. We'll be back Monday at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. And so set your clock. Just get a notification. Hit the notification bell. That'll work. Later, guys. Have a good weekend. I really do appreciate hanging out with you guys all the time. It is fun. Have a good one, man. And ladies, and everybody else. We are out.